the Envisioneer this week, we have a mystery on our hands. Scholars on this mighty ship are investigating a horrible crime. When in search of an ancient treasure, we were marooned on the island, and a key part of our navigational map went missing. Of the entire crew, we have gathered 2 suspects. Today you will hear the evidence collected against the devious Dr. Smart and the desperate shipwright Neff.
Hello. Today, I will be talking about medicine on the Envisioneer. On the Envisioneer, we had a giant shipwreck, and many people broke their arm, like this young doctor here. And our scholars are trained to immobilize broken arms and broken limbs, basically. So, she is using a SAM splint on this doctor. And how to use a SAM splint is that you put the SAM splint you measure it on the other arm that's not broken. Then once you have the measurements correct, you take it off and you make a cradle out of it. Then you put it on the broken arm and you wrap it in an ace bandage. This ace bandage will squeeze it tight, and it will make it so that the wrist cannot move. Then you'll put one of these, a sling on it. The sling will make a nice resting place for the arm. That way, she doesn't have to keep the arm up holding like this the entire time. So, how to use the sling is you put the corner at the elbow and the other 2 corners around the head. Now, you have a nice resting platform. Thank you. Also, on the Envisioneer, while searching the Envisioneer, we had some collapsed lungs. In a collapsed lung, there's a hole in the lung and air escapes into a chest cavity. In the chest, this is what a diagram of a normal lung would look like. This represents the diaphragm, and the balloon inside represents your lung. This is a collapsed lung. This is the diaphragm working really hard, but it can't get any air into this lung because there's a hole in the lung. This is the chest cavity, and it escapes into the chest cavity. Overall, it is important to bring medicine wherever you go, and we use medicine a lot on the Envisioneer. Thank you.
26.
What the M-Bot was made for. The M-Bot was made to save Sidney Young and the shipwright Neff. The captain couldn't do it himself because they were lost in a dangerous forest, so the M-Bot was made to go through the forest and look for them. While on its journey, it crossed a roughed-up bridge, one of its biggest feats. As you can see in front of us is a replica of that bridge, so we can show what it was like.
I did.
The M-Bot has 3 basic functions to make it work. Green mode, where it avoids obstacles. Blue mode, where it follows black lines. And white mode, where programming comes in. The white mode allows it to go forward, backward, left, and right in a certain order. It also plays music. This is an M-Bot. To explain more, I'm going to give it back to you. These are the motors. The motors are basically what makes it so that the wheels work and power them. These are the sensors. This sensor is for green mode, where it senses walls and it turns around once it senses something in front of it. This is for blue mode, so it can trace black lines on the ground and follows them. And this is the motherboard. The motherboard is basically what makes the M-Bot work.
So, on the Envisioneer, a lot of our crew members were having pulmonary problems, so we decided to, investigate the heart a little bit. So what we did, and what we figured out, what we learned, was that the blood comes down through the vena cava into the right atrium, up through the right ventricle, and out of the pulmonary artery to the lungs. And then it comes back down through the pulmonary vein, up through the left atrium and the left ventricle, and out through the aorta. So with all this, and then after this we dissected a beat part too.
Through the dissection, we were able to understand the interworkings of the heart and help the crew members with pulmonary problems.
For the snakebite investigation, I'll be talking about what we learned. For this case, Sidney Young got bitten by a snake. Dr. Smart thinks that she got bitten by a neurotoxic snake. First, I'll be talking about the differences between neurotoxic venom and hemotoxic venom. The neurotoxic venom affects your nerves, and the hemotoxic venom affects your heart and blood. So in class, we got lemon juice and milk to see how a snake bite can affect your blood. So as you can see, I added the lemon already, and the texture got plumpy. So when people get a snake bite, their blood clots up. By finding out which snake bit Cindy Young, we also found out Dr. Smart lied about her diagnosis to cover up the fact she had been kidnapped.
Do you like blood? I doubt it. If so, we drop blood. We dropped it to figure out the different heights where people with injuries are from. 66 inches were usually a head injury, 30 inches was usually a hand or a waist injury, and then 12 inches was usually a leg injury. We had 4 suspects. We had Sidney Young with a gash on her shin, we had Neff with a cut on his head, we had Potter with a cut below his right knee, and we had Dr. Smart with a cut on his hand, or a Band-Aid on his hand.
When we dropped blood, the higher it was, the bigger the drop was. The lower it was, the smaller the drop was. We did each 4 times. We then took an average of the diameter, and it was 11.4 millimeters long. In 30 inches, it was 13.6 millimeters long, and 66 inches was 14.9 millimeters long. When we each measured the blood samples, we used these pieces of paper to measure them and took samples of each height with the blood.
We saw the suspect's blood drops. It was an average of 14.5 millimeters, which is closest to 66 inches. Neff's cut was on his head, which is the highest cut. All the other injuries were too low, so the blood had to belong to Neff.
By finding out how high the blood was dropped from, we could easily tell who the blood belonged to other before suspects.
Hi, right now I'm testing to find what this mystery powder is by seeing how different powders that we thought would be the mystery powder react to liquids like vinegar and iodine. And once we see those reactions, we would try and compare them to how the mystery powder would react to those, and then we would know what the powder is. Ooh, it seems the results are in, and that the mystery powder is actually cornstarch that Dr. Smart would use to treat burns with.
Hello, we are here to see whose fingerprints are on the cut. First, we would test the fingerprints.
And we use powder in our evidence center to crime scene. And we got the fingerprints.
Second, we put tape on the fingerprints to see the fingerprints clearly. Here's one of the examples. But then here's the one that came out best. This is the finest one. And in the lab, what came to us was this. These two match exactly.
The same.
This is Dr. Smart's fingerprint. It means that he was there at the scene of the crime.
Based on the information we have gathered from the STEM group, we have concluded that Dr. Smart and Shipwright Neff are the culprits and will be brought to justice on the charges of kidnapping the first mate Sidney Young and stealing the ancient map.